Mobvoi has recently refreshed their lineup with the Ticwatch E2 and S2, but there really isn't a great deal to differentiate between both smartwatches. Even so, both options have some decent overall hardware improvements over the originals to potentially warrant an upgrade. You could be forgiven for first wondering what the actual differences are between the S2 and the E2 Ticwatches. Aesthetically, the S2 remains a bigger brother of the E2, and yet it is only slightly bigger thanks to the slightly less circular crown. The E2 retains a sleeker, minimal aesthetic that does veer away from the original E a little bit, and therefore has a much larger footprint. That isn't to the detriment of the watch at all, it's simply slightly bigger, but it is worth noting. The S2 now includes the ability to remove the straps, which is a big improvement over the non-removable option found on the original S. I can't say that I am a huge fan of the faux chronometer, but it does make it easy to tell these two apart at first glance. Both do have the same 1.39 inch OLED display that looks great in almost all lighting conditions, and a heck of a lot better than the originals of each smartwatch. The button placement on both smartwatches is also the same now, having moved from the left side to a slightly more uniform right side position. Wear OS 2 now runs much better on both the S2 and the E2, both feel much better and more responsive, with only a few slowdowns either right after turning on or during the setup process in my experience. It's not Mobvoi's fault that Wear OS isn't exactly perfect, although it is their fault that Tic Health is the main fitness tracker as standard. Although that said, once you update the app you can change it to Google Fit simply by long pressing on the Tic Health panel when swiping right. The problem with Wear OS is there aren't any real killer apps, although I get for most people a smartwatch is simply a notification station that has the ability to track workouts. Another issue is that you won't be able to make calls via the Ticwatch E2 and S2, as both devices oddly only have a microphone but no speaker. I have to admit that is a bit annoying to be honest, as it is pretty convenient being able to answer a call via your wrist. It also makes no sense in regard to Google Assistant either. You can ask your watch things but then get no audio feedback, instead it's displayed or beamed to your phone, which isn't exactly ideal. I must admit battery life is much better in my experience and thoroughly exceeds the original Ticwatch E, which had pretty poor battery if you use more than sporadically throughout the day. I'm confident that you will get around 2 days of battery if you aren't glued to your watch face. I've personally managed to get a full weekend of wear out of the E2 without needing to charge, and that included an hour of sport before battery life started to wane as my Sunday evening was winding down. I can't honestly say I noticed any difference in battery performance on the S2 and the E2, both are 2-day smartwatches for the average user. I found myself almost impulsively opting to wear the E2, as although the size of both is very similar, I preferred the overall aesthetic. The faux chronometer on the S2 does look a little bit cheap in my opinion, but both watches do look great in the stealth matte black colour. I have to say both watches are comfortable even when worn all day and are lightweight enough to wear to the point where you don't really notice that you've got them on. Having removable straps is also a massive bonus, as you can pick a style to suit your own taste without costing too much or being too finicky. Overall, both smartwatches are so similar in usage and design that it is a toss-up as to which is the best option for you. The only real difference between the two smartwatches is the design. That and the Ticwatch S2 has a slightly more rugged MIL STD 810 rating, which is a pretty big deal for a smartwatch. How you decide between the two will be a tough decision, although we'll do our best to answer any questions you have in the comments section below. You can also find links to both the Ticwatch E2 and the Ticwatch S2 down there if you'd like to check either of these solid Wear OS options out. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this, but until next time, this is Damien for 9to5Google saying thanks again for watching, and I will speak to you later.